Man, I forgot she was on the show.
She's everywhere.
She's everywhere.
I didn't know that either, to be honest with you. So
I didn't.
All
right.
Why is Miley Cyrus on there?
We're live.
we are live.
Okay. All right. So like I said, we'll give it a little bit, let people kind of join in and get them going and see how many people we got before we get started. Take a little bit.
Todd, what you drinking tonight?
Can't
hear you.
Nope.
You're muted.
I sure am going to mute myself. So we're going to be back and forth between Little Basil Hayden and Little Maker's 46 this evening. What about you?
6 is good times.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Well, guys, we'll go ahead and get started. We got quite a few people tuned in already. So welcome, everyone, to the Behind the Mic show as we come to you every night, Tuesday night at 8 o'clock live. So please feel free to interact with us. Hopefully you brought some bourbon yourself, because tonight we're doing something special with a bourbon tasting, talking about a variety of different bourbons and all that to kind of give you maybe some background as well, what makes a good bourbon, what qualifies as a bourbon, and also just talk about the different, everybody's got a different type tonight that we have. We want to hear from you, what you're trying out there and what bourbons you're enjoying the most. So I have collected quite the ensemble tonight of people that were nice enough to join us. So I'll introduce them as we go along, and we'll just kind of go from there. So welcome everyone that's joined in. We're already up to 15, 20 people, so that's great. Please share this show if you know other bourbon folk out there that enjoy this stuff, and we'll see how many people we can get. So with me, as always, of course, is Lane Pye, Brian Lane. Lane, what did you bring tonight?
So tonight we're going to do a little bit of Knob Creek 12-year. Very, very good. And as you can see, it's about half gone. And then also Four Roses single barrel. So those will be the two that I'll be drinking tonight and discussing.
Very good. Okay. Brian Delaney, our other usual co-host, what have you brought with us with yourself tonight? What are you drinking on?
Sure. So the first one is Smoke Wagon, uncut, unfiltered. It's batch number 28. And the other one will be Weller Full Proof store pick from a store in Southern Illinois.
Ooh, okay. All right. And with us all the way from New Jersey, a man who has a podcast on scotches and bourbons and whatever you want to know. This guy has probably forgotten more about this business than many of us will ever know. But he's been doing a podcast for 16 years. His name's Mark Gillespie. So you definitely, and we'll talk more about his podcast as we go along, because you definitely want to check it out. If you enjoy bourbon, if you enjoy scotches, if you enjoy all that, this guy knows his stuff. And as you can see by the wall behind him, he's had plenty of experience over the years, and his collection is massive. So Mark, welcome to the show. Thank you for making the time. And what are you going to be sampling with us tonight and talking about?
Well, I figured I'd start off with an unusual one, the Rocktown Arkansas Rice Straight Bourbon from Phil Brandon and his boys at Rocktown Distillery in Little Rock, Arkansas. It's made with 36% Arkansas rice. They did a partnership a couple of years ago with the Arkansas Rice Federation to create a rice-based bourbon, because rice is a cereal grain, so it counts when you're talking about bourbons. So they made one with rice. And I got to admit, it's pretty good. I'll have my tasting notes for you in a little bit here if you're interested. And then I figured if we're going to do a second one, I'll just look around on the shelf behind me here and grab something.
Perfect. Yeah, you have a variety of options. Yeah. So,
just close your eyes and grab one.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't think
close your eyes and grab one. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it can go wrong. Yeah, that's for sure. All right, and with us again, who was here for our Veterans Day show, always a pleasure. Sabu Irvin, are you in Cali or Florida right now?
I'm in California right now. I'm in 29 Palms doing an inspection. Tonight, I'm going to be drinking regular Jack and the Eric Church Jack Daniels, because the Eric Church Jack Daniels is burning my soul. I know these are whiskeys, but that's what I'm doing tonight. So that's where I'm at.
That's fine. You do what you want. And like I tell people, Sabu can do whatever he wants, because he's twice the size of everybody I know, and I'm not going to tell him otherwise. So, yeah, congrats. Yeah, do what you want. Yeah.
Well, I'm just happy to be involved.
Yeah, that's right. And we're glad you're here. And once again,
Yes,
thank you for your
absolutely.
service as always. And then finally, the lucky gentleman that was nice enough to get me hired and get me in this business. So I'll forever be thankful. And now, just a friend of mine and also somebody that I bother when I have questions still from time to time about the business and the joys. Todd Volk. Todd, what is your job title right now within Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits, and what did you bring to taste on tonight?
So currently, I am the outstate portfolio manager for Jim Beam Suntory. For those, obviously, outstate encompasses anything in the state of Illinois that's not labeled as Chicago or the surrounding suburbs. Tonight, in my glass, I am sipping on some Basil Hayden, 80 proof. A little later, I plan on switching over to a little Maker's 46. Just one thing I want to make sure we remind everybody is tonight we are drinking responsibly, just a little bit. So cheers to that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And of course, we're all at home, so we can do that.
That's right. That's right.
I'm in a hotel room. I'm not going anywhere tonight. So.
Even better.
See, responsible. There you go. Yes, 100%.
Let me guess, is that the Holiday Inn Express in 29?
No, they built a pretty good hotel here right on base. So I'm at the ends of the core. So
Okay.
I'm in here right now. It's a pretty good spot.
Very cool.
My
All right,
son-in-law
so
stationed at 29 Palms for about a year, for a couple of years at the end of his enlistment in the Corps. So I've been out there once or twice.
Yeah, unfortunately, right now in the desert it's 50 degrees, so I'm not going outside at all. So I'm going to be the most responsible tonight because
I have no desire to get out.
I win that. It's 19 degrees and snowing here. I win that one, I think.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, well,
Yeah.
we could get a Delaney. We could get a Delaney video.
125. So.
All right. Well, and once again, thank you guys for making the time. This should be a lot of fun. People that are watching at home or will be watching this, some people, are aficionados of bourbon. They've been doing it for a long time. Some people are new to it. So for those that are new to it, and maybe want a little bit of background about, what bourbon is, Mark or Todd, you guys have, been in this industry and this business for a long time. Could you give kind of just a quick history lesson, quick factuals about what bourbon is, and then we can go from there. So who
Todd,
wants
you
to
want to take
that?
this one first? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So when it comes to bourbon, bourbon is the only native spirit of the United States. A lot of requirements that are there. There's a lot of mistaken things that people always get contacted on of, it's got to be from Kentucky, or it's got to be this, or it's got to be that. Bourbon has to be made with 51% corn. After
Minimum.
that, the rest can be cereal grains. Minimum. That is a great call out. Trying to think where else we can start with it. It does have to be aged in a new oak barrel. Let me think. There is a misconception out there about the aging requirements when it comes to it. Technically, touching a new oak barrel does classify as bourbon. However, it has to be labeled differently, and it's kind of a hidden secret of the industry. Mark, you want to add anything onto that?
Well, let me clarify that. As long as it touches new wood for minimum 5 seconds, you can call it bourbon. But
That is
you go
correct.
through a lot of new barrels that way.
That's going to taste like shit, too.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, the PBR boys tried that with a whiskey a couple of years ago, where they got a distillery in Michigan to run it over, basically coming off the still over wooden staves for 5 seconds, and the TTB let them call it whiskey.
That's technically, I guess, huh?
And it was the worst stuff I have ever tasted.
So is that
As they
as
say.
part of the naming? Does it have
To clarify
be,
what Todd was saying about aging, most of the time when you think of an age statement, you think of the youngest whiskey in the bottle. And that's the case with bourbon. But the U.S. is kind of tricky compared to everybody else. If it's under 4 years old, you're supposed to say how old it is on the bottle. You have to say it. As long as it's 2 years old, you can call it straight, as long as you don't put anything else in it. But if it's under 4 years old, you have to say how old it is. For instance, this Rocktown is on the back. It says aged 2 years in new charred oak barrels, 24 months. Now, 48 months, you don't have to say it at that point. The idea was to make sure that people understand they're getting young whiskey at that point. That's why they make it the rule in the U.S. that it has to be under 4. If it's under 4 years, you've got to put an age statement. Over 4 years, you don't have to, unless you want to.
And no additives, right? Just the cereal and water, right?
Cereal yeast and grain yeast and water.
Yep. No additives.
And
I guess
the
that's
wood.
why. Is that right? They used to. Well, some people used to like put tobacco spit and stuff there to make it look more.
Well, yeah,
watered
that's what
down.
the rectifiers used to do back before the Bottled
Right.
and Bond Act was passed in 1894. That's what led to that, was these guys getting barrels from the distilleries and then stretching it by putting all sorts of crap into those things: tobacco juice, maple syrup, whatever they thought they could get away with to try to make it look and taste and stretch it. That's why the distillers, led by Colonel E.H. Taylor, got together in the 1890s and convinced Congress to pass the Bottled and Bond Act of 1894, which was actually the first consumer product safety legislation ever passed in the U.S. for anything.
Very
I just want
cool.
to say I've been on here for 10 minutes and I've learned more about bourbon than I have my entire life.
Yeah, you got a couple pros here, buddy. Yeah. You know, I don't mess around. I don't do it. I get the right people. We had another question for you, Mark, from Brian Turner. He said he spies his go-to scotch behind you there, Lagavulin 16, and he asked, do you have a similar alternative that you would recommend?
Well, if you don't have the Lagavulin 16, if you can get your hands on the Lagavulin 11 Offerman edition, I'd go for that one. Or the Lagavulin 8-year-old, which I really like, and it's actually priced a little bit less most of the time than the Lagavulin 16. Other than that, pretty much any of the Islas, with the exception of Bunnahabhain and Bruichladdich, would be good, because those two are not generally peated very heavily. So if you want the peatiness of a Lagavulin, go with the others, except for Bunnahabhain and Bruichladdich. Now, Bruichladdich does have two heavily peated expressions, the Port Charlotte and the Octomores. But you'll see Octomore and Port Charlotte on the cans for those. You won't see a Bruichladdich as much. So that's where I would go if somebody's really into peat and wants an alternative to Lagavulin 16.
Okay. And Cindy Price, so a wonderful lady that's a manager of a store I go to here in Western Kentucky. Can someone explain to her what exactly bottle and bond means?
Todd, you want to take that, or I can if you want?
No, I'd be happy to. So when it comes to bottled and bond, it's essentially a government guarantee. So we talked about the Bottle and Bond Act. What it really boils down to is each barrel must be a minimum aged of 4 years. It must be bottled at 100 proof. It must be from the same distillery by the same distiller in the same distilling season. I do not believe, I may double check my notes, but I think that's pretty well the basics of it.
Yeah. Basically,
Yep,
a
that's what I
distilling
got.
season, there are 2 seasons, and we just started a new one. So happy spring distilling season. It starts January 1st, runs through the end of June. The fall distilling season runs from July 1st through December 31st. So all of the whiskey has to be made in that 6-month period that goes into a bottled and bond, and it has to be stored in a government bonded warehouse. And in the past, it was a government guarantee of quality. That's sort of gone by the wayside because the government doesn't actually have excise agents guarding the warehouses anymore. They now let the distilleries sort of manage that themselves. But that's the reason it was passed in 1894, was that bottled and bond was considered quality guaranteed because you had government agents actually watching the warehouses and tapping into barrels.
Yeah. Is
So-
that really
Lot of-
needed anymore? Is that something that means anything anymore? I mean, other than a nice label?
Well, it does mean that you're getting at least 4-year-old whiskey.
Okay, sure.
And it's a unique characteristic to bottled and bond because it's all from the same season. All the
Season.
barrels came from a 6-month period, which means that you're not, for instance, say, blending in a small batch where you might blend in 100 barrels. You might put in 10 barrels of, say, 8 or 9-year-old whiskey with a bunch of barrels of 6-year-old to make it taste a little bit older. This case with bottled and bond, it's all from that same 6-month period.
Sure.
So it's closer to a single barrel than a small batch, I would say.
Sure. Right. That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Clarify
So-
like that. Distilling season, rather than several years worth potentially, simply.
Yeah.
Everything has to be
So-
made within
so-
a 6-month period.
Yeah. So, folks, if you're wondering why Mark has a podcast and show for the last 16 years, I think you're starting to figure it out because he knows quite a bit about this.
I've learned quite a bit about this because when I started out, I didn't know much. I started the podcast out in 2005 so I could learn this stuff, so that I could talk to the guys like the very first episode I had the late, great Parker Beam on the show.
Ooh.
So
Oh,
you get
wow,
to
what
talk
a
to
treat.
Parker and Jimmy, Elmer T. Lee, and the legends.
That was your
and
first show?
Master Distillers.
Jesus.
Yeah.
When you get
Boy,
to
nothing
talk
like
to those
starting
guys-
out with a grand slam. Good God.
Our
Wow.
first show was
That's why you
us.
that's why you listen and learn to these guys. That's
Mhm.
why I can say this stuff, because I listened and learned to these guys telling me about it.
Absolutely. And Mark, before we get into the bourbons that we've brought and the tasting as well, tell us about your podcast, where people can find it, what night show on Facebook as well. Just give us your information.
Well, the podcast is called Whiskey Cast, no E, one word, Whiskey Cast, WHISKYCAST. You'll find it on the web at whiskeycast.com and wherever you get your podcasts. Comes out every week, usually on Sunday nights. And we're up to 16 years and 854 episodes as of this week. You will find pretty much whiskeys from all over the world covered. It includes interviews. The interview this week's show is with Billy Walker, who is one of the legendary Scotch whiskey makers of the last 25 years. He is now one of the owners of the Glenallachie distillery in Scotland. He and his partners bought that about 3.5 years ago after selling off Glenglassaugh, Benriach, and Glendronach distilleries in Scotland to Brown-Forman for a boatload of money. Billy took his share of it, got some partners, and bought Glenallachie from Chivas Brothers, and is now turning that into a single malt. Previously, almost all of that distillery's output had gone to blending. So that's the interview with Billy this week. We also do our happy hour webcasts on Friday night on our YouTube channel and Facebook at 5 o'clock Eastern time. This week, I'm going to have Steve Bayshore and Lisa Wicker. Lisa is the head distiller and runs Widow Jane in Brooklyn, but she is also the consulting distiller at George Washington's distillery at Mount Vernon in Virginia. Steve is in charge of that distillery for Mount Vernon and runs the historic whiskey making project there. For a lot of people who don't know, George Washington was not only our first president, but after he left the presidency in 1789, he opened a distillery at Mount Vernon and made rye whiskey for a couple of years and was one of the biggest distillers of the day along the U.S. East Coast.
I'll be damned. Well,
We'll be
yep,
talking
see?
with him.
There's
And
a
if you
nice
wanna
little
catch-
fun
if you want
fact.
to go back and catch this past Friday night's show, you guys talk about sports. If you're into motorsports at all, we had the guys from the Off Track with Hinch and Rossi podcast, James Hinchcliffe and Alexander Rossi from IndyCar, along with their podcast producer, Tim Durham, tasting a bunch of bourbons because those guys are into bourbon.
Wow, cover it all. I love it. I love it. So thank you for that. And everybody make sure and check that out. If you love bourbon, if you want to learn more about it, there's no better podcast out there than to check that out. So please do that. And we'll share that, on the page as well. People, have any questions at all. Got a couple questions coming in. Todd, if you have someone that is brand new to bourbon and wants to try out a good bourbon, but not for a steep price, what would you recommend?
Usually with somebody just getting going, I'd recommend like a wheated bourbon, like a Maker's Mark, just a little bit more approachable, a little softer, but I'd probably take them a step back and maybe start with like an Irish whiskey, something very easy on the palate, and then kind of working their way in. It's actually a question I was going to ask the group is, what was your first whiskey when you decided to get into it? And I know for me, it was definitely Two Gingers. Not that, that's a well-known brand. It's one of the smaller ones. The Irish whiskey really led me in and down the path of, then I started through the Jamesons, and then I started into the bourbons a little more full time. Does anybody want to share their thoughts on that?
Lane, what
Kieran
was your first
Folliard
one?
from Two
Oh, sorry,
Gingers
Mark,
is
go
a
ahead.
great guy.
What'd you say, Mark?
Oh,
I'm
without
sorry.
a doubt.
Kieran Folliard, the guy who founded Two Gingers up in Minneapolis, great guy.
Mm-hmm.
Good whiskey.
Oddly enough, so he came to Champaign on a market visit. This has been years ago, and first time I'd met him, and obviously he's coming to town. That's what started it. It's like, oh, I better really get into this, because before I was a rum and vodka drinker, and frankly a lot of beer. That's where I led into that. It was an introductory, and he was awesome. I tell you what, he can command a crowd. He was at one of the local establishments, and I think they would have bought anything I was selling at the end of that visit with him. He is fantastic.
Also a
He has
salesman.
the gift of gab.
So Lane, what was one of your first bourbons? What got you started?
Well, to go just exactly what Todd said, to go back, the first thing I really got introduced into was Irish whiskey, and it was Tullamore and Bushmills. Those were the first two I sampled with a neighbor of mine at the time, and that got me into the whiskeys. And then the whiskey, I did progress all the way down into the bourbons in that round. But those were the two I can distinctively remember. Those were the first two whiskeys I tasted. And as he said, it's a little easier on the palate, and I really remember liking Tullamore really well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Delaney, what about you?
Mine's relatively recent. The last, it must have been 3-4 years ago. My wife and I went to the distillery in Galena, Illinois, which the Blom Brothers Distillery, and their juice was still in barrels, so they were selling presumably Midwest grain product as their Nodder bourbon. I'm like, this is pretty good. I like this, and then from there, it just kind of exploded the last couple of years for me, especially the last probably 18 months or so. Just trying to find any and everything to taste, and so I guess that's the not even like that distillery,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of kicked it off.
Right, very good. Sabu, what about you? 20 plus years of Marines. I'm sure you tried several, but what got you started?
My dad was a big Jameson and Jack Daniels guy, so that's where I got started drinking my most like whiskeys. And now I'm really into finding just the odd ones. Jack Daniels has put out a couple that I really like now. The Eric Church that I really like, and the Frank Sinatra, which was really good. And the older Jamesons are one of my favorites now. So I'm a Marine. We don't do much but shoot guns and drink whiskey. So it's kind of but I just really, you kind of go from drinking it to drinking it and knowing what it is. And went to Tennessee, went to the distillery, and I was like, okay, well, I kind of understand where I'm going now. So I'm just not into drinking whiskey. I'm into drinking something that's going to be worth drinking. So I'm really, I'll be honest, you invited me to this thing, and I'm just kind of sitting back and just learning from these guys. This is insane.
Yep.
So I'm having a good time right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because we're going to talk a little football here in a little bit too. So, we need you for that as well. And Mark, what about you? What got you started?
Well, I started out with Scotch. I've told this story a few times. Back in the summer of '97, I was down in Sarasota, Florida. My grandmother had passed on, and I had to go down there to take care of her estate. There's a bar in Sarasota called Michael's on East, a bar and restaurant. These guys helped kick off the Whiskey Obsession Festival for the first few years down there. But they had a little annex tasting room over by Sarasota General Hospital at the time, and little small wine, spirits bar, nice beers. And then in one half of it, and then you could cross through the doorway into the other half was their liquor store. So if you found something you liked in the bar, you could go across and buy it. I walk in there one night and they're doing a flight of single malts from Scotland for like $15 for 4 samples. And I figured at the time I'd been drinking just beer and wine. And I figured, let's see if I can get past, much like you guys did. Let's see if I can try something different, much like Todd said. So I sit down at the bar and tell the bartender, okay, put the card down. Teach me what you know. So he pours these 4 single malts, and I immediately pick up the differences from the different regions. There's an Isla, a Highland, a Speyside, and a Lowland. And I pick up the differences, and I decide, hell, I could learn to like this. And it was all downhill from there. Got into later, and then eventually got into bourbon, and I started with Maker's Mark. But for your audience member that is looking for an inexpensive bourbon to start with, I'm going to throw one out there that might shock you guys. Evan Williams Bottled in Bond. You should be able to
$15.
get it
Yep.
for less than $20 a bottle. It's really good, really smooth, and it's very underrated for the price. If you pay more than $20 a bottle, I'd be very surprised,
Yeah.
unless you're in a high tax control state. But that's a really good, I mean, that's a bottle I normally would have around here.
That's
And I
the
would
white
have no
label,
problem
right?
pouring it for someone.
Right.
That's the white
Absolutely.
label. Is that one, right?
Yeah, the
Yep.
Evan Williams Bottled in Bond white label.
Mhm. Yep. Oh yeah. And
That's a great
I
call.
also,
That's a great call.
yeah, and whenever I got started, due to Todd and also to my buddy Brent Johnson in Benton, was Maker's Mark as well. That's basically where I got my start as well, and I like that. It's like Todd said, very smooth, very affordable, and now I like Bullet Rye. Also because I sell it, but I do like the taste of it as well. And then I also now is more of a higher level. So this is definitely affordable as well. And then a higher level is Blade and Bow, which I'll taste here in a little bit. I really like Blade and Bow. It's very, very smooth. And speaking of Brent Johnson, he had a question as well. When tasting a bourbon, do you prefer neat on the rocks or with a few drops of water, and why? So Mark, we'll start with you and we'll work our way back around. How do you like it?
Well, I almost always drink it neat.
Mhm.
Never drink it with ice unless it's a hot summer day and I'm sitting outside. I don't like ice because ice dilutes the nose. Ice kills the nose in a whiskey. If you remember basic chemistry class, heat expands things, cold contracts them. Well, with the cold, if you put ice in there, it's going to contract and close up that nose and you're not going to get the aroma. So I always, when I'm nosing a whiskey, and I'm not actually just sitting there for drinking purposes, I will drink it neat and nose it neat, and then add a few drops of water with an eyedropper. The only time I'll ever put ice in it is if I'm making a highball with like a Jameson and ginger or something like that, where I'm wanting something just to drink rather than, or to cool off with rather than to savor and to nose. But if I'm going to savor and nose a whiskey, it's almost always going to be neat, or just a few drops of water, especially if it's cask strength.
Okay, very good. Sabu, what about you?
I'll tell you, I do a lot of highballs. I did a lot of time in Japan, and they love highballs in Japan. You can actually get them in the cans over there. So I usually do mine on the rocks. I have these spears and Darth Vader helmets and all the rest of this craziness that I usually throw in there. But I mean, if it's a good whiskey, I'm just doing it neat with a little bit of water. That's about it.
Perfect. Hottie Toddy, what about you?
A long time ago, a gentleman told me that if it tastes good, swallow it. So I prefer mine with ice, depending on the item, a little cola. And that's the best thing about bourbon. Mark is not wrong. I'm not wrong. It's what you like, and it's something to enjoy and appreciate.
Yeah, like Fred No keeps saying, drink it any damn way you like. If you like it, that's fine.
Yep.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yep. Delaney, what about you?
I had to step up to where I'm at now the last couple of years. I started out especially some of the higher proof stuff, I had an ice cube in there just to knock it back a little bit. And now I'm completely neat, unless it's like the Stag Junior or something like that. It's like 130 proof. I'll maybe put a drop in there if it's been a little while, but otherwise the only ice I use is when I'm making an old fashioned, and that's about it.
If I can throw in, here's why you don't put ice in. Here's why, just because a lot of people don't think about this. What else do you keep in your freezer besides the ice trays? Keep all
food.
kinds of meat, maybe some fish, all kinds of food, garlic in the refrigerator. And as you're making ice cubes, it picks up the aromas of whatever's in that refrigerator or the freezer. And that's going to taint the flavor of the ice. And it's going to throw off the flavor of the whiskey. So unless you've got your own
That's why I
separate
bought an
ice
ice
maker
maker.
like a restaurant does, I wouldn't put ice in whiskey at home unless you have your own beer cooler or something like that you can keep ice in separately, just for that reason alone.
Is that why you don't, Lane? Because it tastes like prostitute body parts? Is that
I can't confirm nor deny.
Hey, Hey, I'll be honest with you. My wife is Spanish, so she keeps all kinds of weird Spanish foods in the freezer. So I had to get an ice maker.
There you go.
Ice maker.
Yeah.
I was like, I
My
Did not
wife
drink
went
whiskey, it tastes
vegan,
like
so the
adobo.
stuff smells like tofu now.
There you go.
Good do it. You have 2 adobo and ice whiskeys, and you're done for.
Good night, baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lane, what about you?
Same way. I kind of worked my way to drinking neat with a little bit of water. I have a brother-in-law who kind of introduced me to some of the higher end scotches and so forth, and he did a little bit of the eyedroppers of water. So occasionally I'll do that, like Delaney said, on the higher proof stuff, the barrel strength and so forth. But normally I like it neat, even if it's got a little bit of a burn. I still like that. I love the nose part of it. So I think I drink more. I hate to say it, but I think I drink more through the nose than I do through the palate
Absolutely.
part. I mean, I love the smell, and usually the smell is what tends to overpower how I taste it. So yeah, I usually drink it neat.
I love
Here's
that
the
idea.
way-
Yeah, I love just to smell that glass after it's empty. I'll sit there and smell that sucker and just enjoy that for a while before I go get another pour even.
Yep.
One of the things I get asked a lot is how to get somebody who's never tried it before, how to get them to like bourbon or like whiskey in general. And the tip I always do is take an equal amount of room temperature bottled water and whiskey, say half an ounce of water, half an ounce of whiskey, dilute it down, give them that first. They'll get the aroma, they'll get the flavor of it, but they don't get the overpowering alcohol taste. And then as somebody gets used to it, less water, more whiskey, until you get them up to the point where they're drinking just a few drops of water. That's how I've gotten a lot of, I'll get people who will come over and say, oh, I hate whiskey. I can't drink that stuff. And I'll go, I bet I can get you to like it. And
It's a good challenge.
usually 4 out of 5 times by the end of the night, they like it.
Then they're raiding your cabinets next thing you know. Get away from the crappy.
We all do those things. We all did that stupid stuff where we did shots in college or whatever.
Yeah.
And you
Shitty
get that-
stuff. Yeah.
Once you get past that, you never want to try it again.
Yeah.
Right.
I was at that point for a few years.
Yeah, because you puke it all
I
up.
still
It's not
think
as
a lot
fun,
of
you know?
When
And you get
everybody-
these bad memories, but if you
Right.
try it the right way, you can learn to like it again.
Right, like an adult, for example. Yeah, do an adult.
Yeah.
We all started with
Hey,
Fireball. Now we're drinking, nice stuff.
No,
I
we
actually
did not
took a
all
shot
start
before
with
this
Fireball.
podcast, so don't. Actually took a shot before this podcast, so don't kick me out of the podcast.
No, it's
No.
Oh no! Welcome.
No, no, no.
Yeah, are you
No,
kidding?
no.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have no
Yeah.
problem with shots occasionally,
Hey,
but
I had a rough
you
day.
don't do
I
it
had to
for
get it in my system.
savoring.
yes.
Yeah.
It's been a rough
Well,
one.
and before we get into a little bit of tasting, everybody that's on this podcast right now is also, because I follow Mark on Twitter. I see that he isn't just a liquor guy. He knows a little bit about everything. Todd's the same way. Sabu's the same way. And of course, the three of us on a regular basis. We're going to talk a little sports too. So we want your guys, because we have celebrity guest pickers this week. We're like College Game Day, baby, almost. So we got the NFL playoffs going on. And right now, the three of us that usually do the show are doing quite well in our playoff picks, NFL playoffs. I hate to say it, but I am like 9-1 right now. I wish I'd have been betting on these, because man, would that be something? But yeah, I hate to say it. But coming up, we really hate to say it. But coming up, we have, of course, the conference championship games. You got Green Bay, Tampa Bay. And then, of course, you've got Buffalo and Kansas City. Big-time games coming up this weekend. Pretty exciting. So we want our celebrity guest pickers, and, of course, Lane Pie and Delane. We need that as well, because we got a little thing going on as well. But Todd Volk, who you got in those two games and why?
Well, as a diehard Bears fan, it's almost impossible to say that there's a great outcome with Tom Brady on one side and Aaron Rodgers on the other. But I'm gonna have to really root for my boys down in Tampa Bay for tonight. Like to see them win it and keep those people up in Wisconsin disappointed for another year. A lot of it's going to depend on if Mahomes is going to be able to play, but my 7-year-old is going to be rooting for Mahomes. So I'm going to go Kansas City facing down Tampa Bay.
Ooh, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, and the Super Bowl. Okay. Sabu, what about you? I think I got a pretty good idea on one.
If Tampa Bay's defense shows up, Green Bay can't play with them. It just is what it is. Green Bay's line is pretty good, but when they played them the last time, Tampa Bay's defense is insane when they can play. Only thing that worries me is Tampa doesn't seem to be able to cover premier receivers, meaning we got to get to the quarterback before he can get the ball out. So I'm taking my Bucks. I'm a Buccaneers fan since I was 5 years old. I'm doing that 110%. And I believe Mahomes is for real hurt. I don't think he's going to recover from that. I'm taking the Bills. I'm taking the Bills and the Bucks.
Okay.
I love how Kansas City is playing, and I know they're an elite offense, but the problem you have is without Mahomes at the helm, and if he's not 100%, they're going to have a problem. And the Bills right now are playing out of their minds.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Mark, what about you?
I like the Bills on Sunday against Kansas City if Mahomes isn't playing. I don't think Chad Henne is anywhere near quality enough to be a quality backup for Mahomes or to be an effective substitute for Mahomes. So I like the Bills if Mahomes isn't playing. If Mahomes is playing, the Bills are in trouble. Now, on the NFC side, Sabu, I got to disagree with you. Tampa Bay is not going to do – I want to see what the weather forecast is in Green Bay, first of all.
It's supposed to be 20.
It's snowy.
What?
20 and snowy.
If we're playing on the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, then I got to go with the Pack on this one. As much as I hate to say it, I got to go with the Pack if it's 20 degrees and snowing. Brady can handle that, but the rest of the Bucks, I don't think so.
Good point.
With you, if it's below 20, we're in trouble. That Florida, I'm from Florida. I'm from Orlando. I lived there most of my life. And when it gets low, you don't work. Your body does not work. That's why I'm not.
When it gets low, the Bucks get slow.
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely.
For the record, I have switched over. I pulled a bottle of 3-quart 12-bar reserve bourbon.
Ooh, very good, very good. And after this, we will definitely start talking about that and aromas and all that stuff, the finishes and all that. So for sure, that's
2 whiskeys each tonight.
Yeah, right. Nothing wrong with that. Delaney, you are very far behind right now in the bet.
Yeah.
So
2 games, a whole 2 games, aren't I?
Yeah.
Well, I better figure it out then, hadn't I?
That's right.
Since we
So
have
who you got?
so much writing on this. So the Bucks, Packers, I have to hear it from these jackass Packers fans all the time. So I'm always rooting for them, especially as a Bears fan, of course. I've gone back and forth with this the last couple of days. Rodgers is playing well. They got a running game. Their defense is playing well. But I would shoot myself if I ever picked against Tom Brady. So I'm going to go with the Bucks with the upset. It's going to be 20s, little flurries. It's going to be prime time. Rodgers, Brady. Fox is going to be having a boner over that, I'm sure, of all their advertisement. And Bucks over there. The other game, I think there's no way that Mahomes was just getting a pinched nerve. You don't look like you got like a deer in headlights when you get up, when you get your boner like that.
That's not a pinched nerve.
They want. You pinched nerve, you go, ow. When you're staying up in your eyes.
Pinched nerve hurts here. Mahomes was hurting here.
Yeah.
he didn't know where he was for a second.
Not a clue.
Rolling around like a newborn giraffe.
Been there. That's not a neck. Yeah.
That's not a neck. I mean, he may have a pinched nerve too, but that's the least of his problems. So, and apparently he may have a little foot thing, but so I'm not really concerned whether he plays or not. I agree with Mark that Chad Henne, he did fine in the backup, but if he's the guy, there's no way they're going to do it. So I'm going to go with Buffalo, either with or without Mahomes. I think that Buffalo's just they're playing well. They're riding Josh Allen's arm and playmaking and decision making, more importantly. So I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills. Plus, that city deserves it too. I don't know. It's fun. There's more people jumping off cars and breaking tables and stuff. So
so great. The mafia. And as we know, as Chris Berman taught us, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. I mean, here we are. Chris Berman's happy. I mean, the world is right. All right. Yeah, that's right. The world, maybe things are starting to get better. Maybe things are starting to get better. All right, Lane Pie. Boy, you need a miracle here, buddy. I mean, what do you got?
So I'm pretty sure I know your picks. So to try and change things up, and actually I went back and forth on both these games quite a bit. So let's go with the AFC first. I'm with Delaney. I'm going to circle the wagon and go with the Bills as well. I think even if Mahomes is back, I don't think he's going to play the same, because in the back of his mind is still that, man, I'm one hit, one tackle, one time of going for it on fourth down and trying to get the first down, or on third down and trying to get the first down, and he gets rung again and he's out of the game, because we all know concussions tend to come back. So especially in a short duration. So I'm going to go with the Bills on that. I think Allen's going to have a really good game. And I think the Bills defense can shut down a few of those weapons enough to give their D-line time to make Mahomes have to make some other decisions. So I'm going with Buffalo on the AFC. On the NFC, I've went back and forth on this one in my mind a ton, and I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to take. So I'm again going to go the opposite. And like Delaney, I'm not betting against the GOAT. I think Brady pulls this off in a very low-scoring game, similar to what he had. I mean, it wasn't that low-scoring against the Saints, but the guy just knows how to win. So I'm picking Brady and the Bucks. Yeah, if it's sleeting and negative something, then probably not. But the way the forecast looks now and just the way that the whole thing's going, I'm going to go with the Bucks in an upset there.
Okay. All right. Well, nothing wrong with that. So me and this, like you guys, all you guys have said, you're all right. Mahomes, that's not a neck. That's a woo. We got up woozy. And I mean, he's still got a ways to go. Also, let's not forget, he was limping before that. He's got a foot problem too.
Yep.
So he's not feeling great. Also, I have not been impressed with Kansas City for a while now. They've eked out some games. They haven't looked as explosive as they did last year. And let's not forget, it's really difficult to repeat in NFL, to win back-to-back championships. That's pretty rare. So, that's got me kind of, and the Bills look fast. They look young. They look confident. And I am a big fan of Josh Allen. He wears the right number. I mean, I've said that before. I'll say it again. Number 17. You can't go wrong with that. So I'm going to go with the Bills as well in an upset at Arrowhead. I see that happening. The wagons are circling. Here we go. And then on the Green Bay Tampa game, I respect Tom Brady. I love what he's done. But I will also say this. I've never seen Aaron Rodgers play better, which is hard to say. Because he's played well for so long. He also has a defense for once. He also has a running game for once. So as if he needed more help, he's got it now. And, boy, he looks confident. He looks calm. When you hear him on shows, when he talks about it, he's doing like this yoga stuff as well, and he's all centered and thinking clearly as well. And it's like, oh, boy. So when you get Aaron Rodgers confident as well, he's dangerous. And he's at home, and it's going to be 20 degrees, snowing. Once again, I respect Tom Brady, but I think, it kind of runs out at this point. So I'm going Green Bay at home. So I'm picking Bills, Green Bay in a Super Bowl, which is going to be fun to watch. And we'll see what goes from there. So it should be entertaining, should be fun. And we have some news on that coming up at the end of the show as well. So thank you.
Come down to a field goal try for Buffalo.
It very well, yeah. Both are going to be great games, and I don't see really necessarily. The more I think about it, I don't see necessarily any game being a blowout.
No.
And I see it coming down to a one-score game, a field goal, something like that's going to be some good stuff. So football fans will be happy this weekend, to say the least.
I think we really have two teams. We have four teams that are playing. I mean, you see what the Bucks did to Drew Brees. People don't do that to Drew Brees. Yeah. When you just picking him off all over the place. And look, if you look at Drew Brees' arm, he was hurt. But even at that point, they were all over him. And, the Bills right now are just playing out of their minds. Josh Allen is a big kid. He's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's hard to bring him down. And just like you said, Kansas City's defense is all right. But without the Honey Badger, they're terrible.
Yeah. And I will say this.
Drew Brees is actually younger than Tom Brady.
Yeah, a couple years, yeah.
He is.
Tom Brady sold his soul a long time ago, because there's no way he should look like that. He should play like that. Drew Brees is a normal 40-year-old. That makes sense. The arm streak starts to go. Tom Brady, for some reason, is like a Benjamin Button, and he's going backwards, and it makes no sense, and I despise him, but I also respect him. I hate him because he's got, the supermodel wife and all the money, and he's still playing football. You disgust me, but I also respect you. So I love you, but I hate you.
But love him if you played for your team.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Come on board. Yeah.
really quick, Sam. I won't get too deep into the weeds, but I want one stat here. Aaron Rodgers is through 5 picks all season. 2 of those were the Bucks.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Tampa Bay stomped them earlier in the year. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you,
That
as a
game was down there in
Buccaneers
Tampa?
fan, if we lose to Aaron Rodgers the way they're playing right now, I will not be mad about this season.
Absolutely
No,
not.
no, it's
And
a
Rodgers
great
is
year.
playing like he's 25 years old again. I don't know what
Yeah.
the hell happened. He got
Yeah.
juiced
I mean,
up or
I'm
something.
a
or what.
hardcore Bucks fan, but you got to look at what the guy's doing.
Oh, absolutely.
He's throwing ropes right now. There's nothing. I mean, to be honest with, there's nothing you can do about it. The cornerbacks there's nothing they can do.
Nothing.
If you
Nope.
drop the ball where only the receiver can catch it, and they catch the ball, you did everything you could.
Yep.
That's right.
That's true.
And he's not making bad decisions. Like the guy just never makes a bad decision. He's not throwing the ball away. Like it's just it's remarkable.
Right.
Really.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Brian Turner had a question about the number 17. He was asking, and guys, Mark and Sabu and Todd, that was my number in high school. Brian Turner's a bit of a smart ass. And he asked, was that Stringer or Dury? When you always had a view from the bench, you should know who was playing and what their numbers were. So you should know who number 17 was. And from the bench, you should have had a good view of that. So, yeah. So, anyway, moving on. So moving on, we, as our part of what we're doing here, of course, is the tasting and the aromas and things like that. And we've got some pros here as well. So Mark, we'll start with you on, what you, maybe the one you had before or the one you have now. What can you describe about what you're drinking either before or right now? What do you want to do?
Well, let me go with this 3-chord just because I can.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because I've got it in my glass right now.
You know what might be good, Mark, before you do that is to maybe give a quick idea to people how to nose and how to taste.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Good call, Blaney. Yes.
First of all, I'm using a Glencairn glass, not a rocks glass, because rocks glasses are wide at the top, so they let the aromas escape. So that's why you use a Glencairn or a narrow top glass. If you got a brandy snifter, something like that would work if you don't have a Glencairn. You get your nose up in there, all the way in, and then you move it back and forth like this. The reason is because you smell in stereo. Each of your nostrils has olfactory glands that pick up different aromas. So what your left nostril picks up is not necessarily what your right nostril is going to pick up. So that's why you go back and forth. You keep your mouth open. Fred No taught me this trick. You keep your mouth open so that the alcohol vapors come around back through your nose and then come out through your mouth so that they don't linger in your nose and burn your nostrils, so that you can keep tasting over and over again. You get through like this. Now in this one, I get a lot of maple, a lot of caramel, not much oak, not much spice, a little bit of butterscotch. Very sweet. Now then when you take a taste, you don't take a big gulp, but what you do is you take it and you hold it in your mouth for 10 to 12 seconds. Because the the rule with scotch, the rule of thumb is you hold it a second for each year of age. Well, with this one, we don't know how old it is. The 12 bar is a music reference, not necessarily a 12-year-old statement. So
Are you chewing it there? Is that what you like to do, so to speak?
Because you want to get it all throughout your mouth, because your tongue also picks up different flavors on the front, the middle, and the back and the sides. So you want to make sure you coat your mouth so that you get all the flavor. And so that way you pick it up and I get on this one a little bit of spiciness on the nose, just a little bit of an allspice, maybe a little bit of black pepper. You get the honey and caramel sweetness more towards the back. And then you swallow it, and you get the finish is what you get on that back of your throat as it curls up through your nose or curls up through the back of your throat and around your nose. You get this little aroma of toasted caramel, vanilla, maybe a little bit of toasted marshmallow. Something like that is what I get on this one.
Very good. Very good. Sounds good. That's for sure.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, Todd, what about you? What do you got right now, and what can you tell us about it?
Well, so I just switched over to the Maker's 46.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is one of my personal favorites.
That's one I've been staring at for a while. Like, I gotta grab that one of these days.
It's good stuff.
Fantastic bottle for the value. Easily, I mean, looking around a $35 cost, $40 cost, I'd put it up against almost anything in the $70 range. Just my favorite.
I had the chance years ago to taste that with Kevin Smith, who was the master distiller at Makers at the time when they were still doing the experimental work with it to create it. And he wanted to know my thoughts on it, and I would agree with you. I think it's stunning, and what they're doing with the private select versions of Makers 46 is even better these days.
Couldn't agree more. It really makes a unique product. I mean, you get to design it yourself and really make it your own. Definitely get a lot of wood, a lot of French oak. Get a lot of caramel. Really feel the sweetness in my nose when I taste it. Definitely get that wood, heavy vanilla on the caramel right on the back. Really fills the mouth very well. It's a long finish, very smooth. Really feel that coming front to back or back to front on this one. Yeah, without a doubt, definitely one of my favorites.
Absolutely. And Makers 46 is phenomenal, Todd. You're right. Cask strength. We had someone make a comment about that.
Cooper loves that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that you can't go wrong with that. I mean, Maker's Mark, without a doubt, is top notch all the time. I mean, they know what they're doing. Cool place to visit. I mean, it's just from top to bottom, great stuff. So,
and if I could, really pioneering into the entire Kentucky bourbon experience. A credit to Margie, the founder's wife. She's the one who really set that up to make the tourist industry what it is now. She made Phil. I read this about it, and for every dollar they spent on the product, they spent $1 on the grounds with her instruction of this will be something people come to look at. And Mark, you can probably speak to what it was like in the early 90s, even into the mid 2000s, where bourbon was a lot harder to sell. It wasn't what it is now by any stretch. So the idea of back in the 50s, this being something people are going to come visit, I'm sure went over pretty well around the Samuels house at that time. But she turned out to be right and was honored into being the first woman into the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame.
I'm going to correct you on one thing, Todd, on that one, only because I was there the day she was inducted. She was not the first woman inducted into the Bourbon Hall of Fame. Dixie Hicks, who was the longtime mayor of Bardstown, was the first woman inducted. Margie was the first woman inducted for her work specifically with a bourbon brand. So I want to clarify that.
That is my mistake. I apologize.
No. It's because a lot of folks don't realize that Dixie was inducted before Margie was. But yeah, no, Margie was really one of the pace setters because she's the one who came up with the entire bottle design, the wax dip, the hand printed labels, and the whole Maker's Mark. She's the one who named it. Bill Sr. was just the whiskey guy who wanted to do something different, talked to guys like Pappy and came up with the idea for the wheated bourbon. But it was Margie who did all the heavy lifting in really creating the brand. And then Bill Jr. was the marketing wizard who took off with it and made it run.
I'll be damned. Wow. And also, just so people know that are out there watching, there are more barrels of bourbon in Kentucky than people. And I can verify that because I work down here, and it is definitely a multi-billion-dollar industry that employs a lot of people. So there ain't much in Kentucky besides bourbon and racehorses and a little bit of basketball. And also want to make sure and point out to J.R. Lewis, Kentucky lost again. This time, I believe, to Auburn. I think that's who they lost to. It doesn't matter. They're terrible this year. So Kentucky continues to suck in basketball, but they make good bourbon. So keep that up. But yeah, more barrels.
This is the first year in how many years since the 1970s that the NCAA tournament could lose both Kentucky and Duke in the same year.
And UNC.
1961.
Yeah, crazy.
Bruce got 61 last time they weren't all in the AP together.
Yeah.
Crazy.
25.
Crazy.
That's good. That's great stuff. Unless you're one of their fans.
Absolutely. Love it.
I'm sure JR will be talking about that on the View from the Bench podcast this week, isn't he?
That's right. Yeah, J.R. Lewis, View from the Bench. Also, we want to make sure and point out Bill Atwood is sponsoring our whole show. North Wayne Insurance, back home in Flora and the Sisney area, Clay County. Check him out, whatever your insurance needs are. He's nice enough to do this and sponsor us. He loves the show. I'm not sure why, but bless his heart. So any insurance needs that you have, make sure and contact him. Probably listen to this podcast. You need some insurance. So Bill Atwood right there in Florida. So yeah.
Anybody that sponsors a podcast is good by me.
Damn right, yeah. So make sure and go by and visit him. He can help you out. Great guy. He's funny. He's a sweet man. Check him out. He supports a lot of the local things in the community. So make sure and support him. So North Wayne Insurance. Once again, like we've always talked in Sisney, if you need insurance on your tractor or field, he's your guy. Because I don't know what else is in Sisney. I've been there, and that's about it. Cattle. There you go. Goats. Goats are big, I think so. Just like Turner's House of Goats. Don't forget them. Yeah, that's right. So, Sabu, what about you, buddy? What are you drinking on? What are you getting from that?
I brought this with me. I got I guess it's pretty new coming out. It's Eric Church single barrel Jack Daniels. I think it's one of the single barrels they just put out. And I got to be honest, it's the strongest Jack Daniels I've ever had in my entire life. It has burned all of my chest hair and underarm hairs. And I feel like powder right now. I'm not that white, but it burned everything off of me. I'm just being honest.
A little pasty there, yeah.
Yeah.
I did sprinkle some ice in this because it was destroying my soul, but it's pretty good. I mean, I got it when I recently, a year or so ago, I got promoted to Master Sergeant. I left it on my mantle, and I was like, when something significant happens, I'm going to drink this. And about 3 or 4 months ago, one of my friends died, and I opened it, and it is unbelievable. It tastes great. I mean, it's a Jack Daniels, and it's what you would think when you're drinking Jack Daniels, and I love it. This one and the other one that I'm really liking right now is I got the Frank Sinatra, and I just kind of let it hang out for a little bit before I drank it, which if you're drinking Frank Sinatra Jack, you have to do that. If you open it and drink it, you're going to be in some trouble. You got to let the Frank Sinatra kind of chill for a little bit. And it'll be good. But I'm telling everybody, the Eric Church Jack Daniels, which is my favorite, shave down before you drink it, but it's gonna be a good time. It's a really good Jack Daniels, and highly recommend it. I brought this all the way from Camp Pendleton to 29 Palms because I knew I was participating in this tonight, and I just wanted to be cool like everybody else and drink something that was rare. So
that is, yeah, absolutely. That's hard. That's not exactly easy to find, I don't think either.
No, yeah, but you don't have to bring it from Pendleton to 29 Palms to be cool.
That's right.
Either way, buddy.
I didn't want to come on here and drink like a bottle of like plastic Jack Daniels out of a bottle, and everybody's looking at me like, "What the hell are you doing?" But I got it, and I was like, I had heard about it before, and then my wife surprised me, and I didn't look at the costs at first, and then I accidentally found it, and I was really pissed off after that. But I'll tell you now,
it wasn't as expensive as the Sinatra edition.
Was that, sir?
It wasn't as expensive as the Sinatra edition.
Oh, both my Sinatras cost me some money.
Yeah, so I wouldn't complain about the church one.
Yeah. You get a deal.
Definitely cost me some money. One's not open. The other one I opened when I got promoted. But the church is good. I mean, I know it's pretty new out there, and a lot of people don't know about it, but I recommend it. Just try it.
Yep. And just know, Sabu, I'm glad you brought that on because Todd and I's buddy, Brent Johnson, is probably insanely jealous because he's a huge Eric Church fan. I know Todd's a big Eric Church fan as well. So thank you for bringing that on because I'm sure Brent's got it by now, but if he doesn't.
Music, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh, gotcha.
I haven't tasted that one. So, hey.
Oh, you haven't? Ooh, how about that?
I get samples of everything.
Well, Sabu send himself. Mark needs that, so help him out.
Good.
Hey, I'm here to accommodate whatever you need from me. I will get a vial of this and send it to you. And
you're good. You enjoy that. You enjoyed that, Sabu. You enjoy it.
I'm having a good time.
Dude, I got more whiskey here than I will ever be able to drink in my lifetime.
Yeah.
God, that's a cool one.
Once I finish,
hey, Mark, where you live at?
Yeah, Mark, if you want to get rid of some of that, just let us know. We can help you out.
Where are you based out of, Mark?
Yeah. New Jersey.
Jersey? All right. not that far.
No,
Delaney, what are you drinking on right now? What can you tell us about it?
So right now I'm just drinking on the Weller Full Proof. You know, as someone who's still learning and young, I like to learn about it. So part of my favorite part is just listening to Mark and Todd talk about the history of it. I love that part and learning how to nose it well and learn my palate a little bit better. So give it a try. So just, your basic caramel and vanilla, maybe like buttery cream or scotch or butterscotch maybe. I really love like I said, I could just sit here and just sniff this for hours before I even take a taste. Yeah, vanilla. And what I like the most about this Full Proof and another one, 1792 Full Proof, I love that sort of like an oily mouthfeel. I like that feel of it. So I tend to go towards, it's funny now, the higher proof stuff so I can get that. There's more flavor. There's, it's that more of that mouthfeel as well. It's part of the experience.
Brian, can I challenge you for a second?
Sure.
Now try it put a few drops of water in if you've got some handy.
I don't actually. I'd have to run to get some, but
go ahead. No, go ahead. We'll carry it while you get.
Okay,
I want
you
you
carry
to,
on.
I want you to taste the
mine.
difference. I want to try you on this because I want you to taste the difference between Full Proof and with just like a water bottle cap full of water in there.
Be right back.
See what difference it makes.
Absolutely. So Lane, go ahead. What do you got while we're waiting on Delaney? What do you got?
So right now I have I already made the notes on the Knob Creek 12. So right now I have the Four Roses single barrel. So on the nose, and I was doing this as Mark was explaining it. I think I came to bourbon for the fact that it has that kind of vanilla maple syrup kind of smell, and sometimes the taste as well. So from the nose of this one, I definitely get vanilla maple syrup, a touch of spice, and I would even go back to, Delaney was saying butterscotch. It's like it's in that realm, right, of the vanilla and that so forth. And then on the taste, I get it's very smooth, very, very smooth. Some caramel, a little bit of spice, maybe a little bit of pear sitting in the mouth a little bit, just suggestion. So very good. And I will tell people that when you go into these single barrels and stuff, Four Roses single barrel is incredibly affordable. It's not that expensive of a bottle either. I think I got mine for around 40, give or take.
$40 is pretty much the going rate, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. And then go ahead, Delaney. If you're going to go ahead and do that, Delaney, and then I'll go back to the Knob Creek 12. I'm curious to see what you get as a difference between.
Well, it is different. Like a young palate I have.
I'm betting this is going to open up and change the flavors a little bit for you.
It does. That's one of the things on my goal is to learn more. What am I tasting? Which actually my next question was going to be, do you think a nosing kit is a useful tool?
I got a better solution for you.
Yeah.
Here's how I learned. My wife is a very, very good cook. What I did was start going through her spice cabinet and opening up the spice jars and smelling those and paying attention as she was cooking and going through the grocery store and paying attention to smells in the produce section, smelling various herbs, smelling various fruits and different things in the produce section, and picking up on those aromas.
Sure.
Because that's the stuff they're going to put into a nosing kit, and you're not going to have to pay
exactly.
for it.
Right. I was thinking I'd make my own, but that's even better, really.
But yeah, just start paying attention to the stuff around you.
Sure.
Start smelling when you're out walking. If you're walking the dog or something, smell the flowers. Smell the trees. Smell what pine smells like. Smell what wet pine smells like. Wet wood, dry wood, charred wood. Because wood can take on different flavors depending on whether it's wet, whether it's been freshly burned, whether it's old campfire wood. And just start paying attention to what's around you. That's how I learned.
Good stuff. Thank you.
And Mark, you bring up a good point.
That's a great call out.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, whenever I went to Bullitt to see the place there, and they've got a visitors center and all that, and they have a tasting room, and they bring out these little canisters that have holes in it, and they have different spices in them where you can smell them, kind of get used to it before you taste, the different, whether it's Bullet 10, rye, whatever, and kind of get you acclimated to kind of what you're getting ready to sense. So yeah, get around and smell some things and get used to that. Yeah, absolutely. Great idea.
What dog smells like, because occasionally you'll get a musty smell. It's like your dog when it's been out in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. Smell, I hate to say it, smell what a cat box smells like, because there's an ammonia whiff that comes out in wines occasionally that some folks will pick up in a whiskey.
That's Brian Lane after 4 quarters of football. That's what that is. Yeah, what did I say? What did I say? I don't know.
Open your mind. That's what I would say.
Lane, what about what you're drinking? What finish up with?
So the second one was the Knob Creek 12, and I have a couple comments, and I have one question for both Todd and Sabu and Michael, who have some more experience. But so the Knob Creek 12, obviously it's 12-year, which is the oldest in there. I get a huge, to me, tobacco leather and some oak flavor, maybe a little bit of pepper, and on the nose, and then on the taste, I get even more oak, some vanilla, maybe a marshmallow on the finish. My question is, we even Sabu talked about letting like the Sinatras, those just kind of sit there a little bit. When you open one and it starts, what is some of what happens when the air and the alcohol kind of mix a little bit or something from first opening it to when it's been opened a while? Does it mellow out? Because this 12-year obviously tasted completely different from the first day I bought it and I opened it to when I had it like a week later.
Well, keep in mind that the stuff that evaporates really quickly are the more volatile compounds and volatile chemicals that react when they hit the air, and they dissipate quickly, and they won't last forever. That's why the nose changes over a few minutes. When I'm tasting doing tasting notes for our website, I'll let it sit for a few minutes after I nose it initially, and then nose it again just to see the changes, because it will change as oxygen hits that and reacts with the volatile compounds in the whiskey. So you will get changes over time. The water will also add changes as well, because it creates, when you add a few drops of water, it creates a chemical reaction that breaks apart the molecules that are in that whiskey that have been sitting there in the bottle. And that creates heat that releases floral notes, for instance, fruity notes. It releases estery notes, things like that.
Yeah, I've noticed when you put water in, you can actually watch the water and the oil separate. So obviously, I think it's breaking apart that little bit of surface tension with the oil, and it's kind of opening it up a little bit more. And again, Sam, thank you very much. That's my nerdness in me coming out right there.
Oh, yeah. Teach you that in chemistry or what, dude?
No, that's exactly right. That's not nerdness. That's science.
Yeah, no, he's a nerd, Mark. He's a Star Wars nerd. He's our tech nerd. That's just
no. Nerd is a good thing. Nerd.
That is.
No, it's not bad. It is what it is. Yeah.
It's the new cool. I'd have more girlfriends back in high school.
Absolutely right. Didn't get you laid, but you're doing okay now, buddy, aren't you?
That's right. Maybe. High school, but now, oh man, so great, so great.
If I knew 40 years ago when I was in high school taking chemistry class that I was going to have to depend on talking about distillation for a career, exactly. I would have paid a hell of a lot more attention.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, right. I'd kind of like to teach my kids to do this.
Chemistry teacher, Mrs. Skirvin, I feel so sorry for that woman now.
You know, Mark, if they'd only taught bourbon in high school instead of the boring stuff, you'd have probably got a lot more people buying in. I mean, that's
they taught us how to make the stuff like the little stuff that you dry out that was like a little explosive cracker stuff and stuff like that back then. But because my high school chemistry class was in the middle of the afternoon, next to last period of the day, and by then I was dragging my butt around.
Checked out.
Sleeping halfway through class, and the woman passed me as a mercy pass.
Get him out of here! Get him out of here! That's right.
Look at you now! Look at you now!
Yeah,
that's
right.
If I knew that I was going to have to talk about distillation, I would have paid a damn sight more attention.
For sure. And myself, I'm doing Blade and Bow, as I talked about earlier. They're big on these 5 keys that they have. Each one of them is numbered 1 through 5. And of course, that's a kind of a collector's thing. You try to find all 5, whether
It's
it be
like the Pokemon of whiskey, is it?
It is. That's right. And, good luck finding all 5, So it's just something fun that they do. But grain, yeast, fermentation, distillation, aging are the 5 keys. Whenever I smell it, it's kind of like a fresh fruit as well. Maybe some, grain as well. Of course, you smell kind of the roasted, of it as well. And really, it is smooth, and I mean very smooth. And that's why I like it. I like the rye just because it's different as well. But this, if I'm going to spend a little bit more on a bourbon, and you can get this anywhere from $45 to $50, something like that, to sip on. But you definitely get a little bit of the spice at the end. But it's very, very smooth, and I like this.
Smooth is not a tasting note. Smooth is a descriptor of the mouthfeel. Smooth isn't a tasting note.
No, not at all. But I like the smooth. So, not a tasting note, but I do like the smooth. Yeah,
What's
absolutely.
the proof on that, Sam? Do you know what's the proof on that?
The proof on that is it should be around 90.
90?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
You gotta let me know, Sam. I can get you a bottle of that Blanton's Gold from Japan if you need it, man.
Ooh.
Yeah. What's your email address?
Well, they're selling that here now. They're selling that in the States. They started importing that mid-year last year.
Oh yeah, I heard they were going to start selling it.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it.
You're
I'm
going to find
in
it anywhere
California,
unless you
couldn't find it.
know
I
the
had
right
to get them
people.
to send
But
it to
yeah,
me.
supposedly it's available now. I've never seen it on a shelf, but
No, I've never seen it.
It's on
Yeah,
I
second.
tasted it, but I tasted it in
It's sitting
Europe.
up there, and I have one sitting on my mantle. The day I retire, I'm cracking it open, and I think I'm gonna Michael Jordan that thing all over myself. So we'll see.
Wait a
Hey, if
second.
you need some help finishing that,
Wait a second, dude. Okay, I'm going to tell you this right now.
Yes, sir.
Do not wait until you retire to open that bottle.
Over there.
They did not make it at the distillery for it to sit on your shelf and collect dust.
Okay.
Open it, make memories that are going to last forever, because you don't know how long you have.
Mm-hmm.
You never know how long you have. And if you wait till retirement age, and even the military retirement, you may not get there. You never know.
Yeah.
You open it now.
You're
make
100%
memories
right
with
about
friends.
that. Because
The best investment you can make in whiskey is to open a bottle with good friends, good comrades in arms, and to make memories that will never fade away.
Like tonight.
With you.
yes.
Yep.
oh no, I mean when I came off my last deployment, I had a bottle of the Jack Daniel's 1954, the gold medal edition, and I drank that, and that was awesome. And I received this one in, and I just kind of been waiting it out, but I totally understand what you said. I had a mild heart attack about 2 weeks, a month or so ago. I had a mild heart attack, and it scared the crap out of me. So now I'm kind of like, I'm 40. I've been in the Marines for a very long time. It's kind of like, well, I might as well have some fun now. Nobody knows what this thing's.
And Sabu, you have damn sure earned it. So
with COVID, guys,
Mhm.
with COVID and everything that's going on these days,
Yep.
don't wait. Enjoy it when you can.
Yep.
Make
True.
the memories
Very true.
while you have them.
That's
Because
right.
none of us know how long we have.
That's right. Exactly.
Very
And one final
I will
question.
tell you this. I have a rule at this house.
Hmm?
When I have a bottle, there are only maybe 5 bottles that I will not open. And anything else, if somebody comes to the house and wants to open them, we'll open them. I don't care if they want to try it. We open them, because the distillers didn't make this stuff to sit on a shelf and collect dust. Open it up, make memories. That's the best investment you can make, because, and the pandemic has proved this to us, none of us knows how long we have.
That's exactly right. And Mark, you make a good point. It's like having a Corvette that just sits in the garage. Get that bastard out and just blow the tires and enjoy, because you're not promised tomorrow. So if you got a good bottle of bourbon, get with some friends, enjoy. Don't save it till tomorrow, because it's not promised. And
Having said that, that's an important distinction, is if you have someone come over who doesn't know what the hell they're drinking, that's where you bring in the bullet, maybe a little Buffalo Trace. You're not breaking out the Pappy for those people, because they're like, hey, can I have some Coke with this? And you kick them out of your house.
Kick them out. Kick them out. Get out.
So
That's right.
If
Yeah.
you come to my house and ask to put some Coke in the Pappy, we
We
got
We know
That's
our
right.
friends.
That's right.
And
And
guys, I mean,
Yeah.
Get together with your friends, get together
Mhm.
with people who you enjoy spending time with and making memories with, and open that stuff up, because
Mhm.
none of us are
Yeah.
guaranteed anything in life.
Nope.
Speaking of
Nope.
which, hey, salute to you, Sabu, and everything you've done for our country.
Absolutely.
Fast to the sky.
Amen.
Right here.
Appreciate
I'll
it.
be honest with you guys. I just want to tell you that after 22 years, I enjoy what I'm doing, but I feel like they should have kicked me out about 5 years ago. So I just want to say thank you to you guys
No.
for putting up
We don't
with
do
me.
shit.
Here we
Yeah.
go.
We Wendy's and drink bourbon. You're in 29
Yeah, you're in a whole different stratosphere.
Exactly.
That's right. Yeah. And one final question before we call it a night. Mark, Todd, I'll let you speak to this as well. Zach asked, why is it so damn hard to find certain good kinds of bourbon around here in Wisconsin and Minnesota, but then other places seem to have it readily available? The distribution aspect is confusing to me. So
Yeah.
I know the answer, but what about you guys as well?
Let me
Todd,
tag
go
on to
for
that.
it.
So,
Yeah.
Weller is a great example. People love the Weller. You know, me
Mhm.
included. I love the Weeder. Ohio is like, and Texas are like the Weller capital of the country. We
Mhm.
can't find a bottle of Weller in our area. Nothing. Period. You can't even buy it for like double secondary. So the distribution part is always a fascinating thing for me, as well.
Todd,
Mhm.
you work for the company. Go
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So there's several factors that I always like to bring up when it comes to these things. So whatever item they're talking about, they want it because they can't find it. So these items, we're talking 4 to 12 year. We're talking Knob Creek 12 year, Knob Creek 15 year. 15 years goes by and they put down so many barrels and they lose 3 to 4% a year. That's a lot of loss. Oh, by the way, they paid taxes on it that whole time for more product than they were truly going to get. When it comes to it, if it was everywhere, it wouldn't be special anymore, is one answer that I always like to give.
Mhm.
There is only so much to go around. And as I stated earlier, 2007, 2008, when I first got into this business, a lot of bourbon to go around because a lot of people didn't want it. Now there are people who spend their entire Saturdays hunting bourbon. Some of it's for the chase, some of it's for the collection. Absolutely. But the idea is still the same, that it is a goal. Me personally, I am trying to get to every major league ballpark before the years go by to where I cannot travel anymore. My problem with my goal is at some point there will not be another ballpark to go to, and then I lose that chase that I'm chasing. The same will be true for the person who is searching for that white elephant bottle of bourbon that they are truly, that's not it. What is it? The
Unicorn.
white elephant's a Christmas gift. Yes, the unicorn. I'm sorry.
Unicorn. Yeah.
That's my advice to people. Enjoy the journey that is trying to find your unicorn.
Mhm.
Absolutely. That's a good point. I like the chase and the hunt. That's part of the charm, I think,
Mhm.
as well. Having said that, though,
I agree.
Ohio being Ohio and maybe Pennsylvania and I'm not sure Iowa being liquor control states, how does Ohio, for example, get more Weller products than say Illinois? Is there a contract that happens with the boards and stuff, or do you know about that?
Brian, I'm honestly not sure. I would love to BS you and give you a fake answer. I truly don't know because I've never. Well, I mean, I can make something up. I'm good at that. Ask Sam. That being said, I don't really know. Yeah, Mark, if you know, that would be great to explain more. I've just never worked in a control state.
Certain states that are control states where the government is in charge of liquor distribution, like Ohio, Pennsylvania, where not only they control distribution, but they control retail, and you can only buy it in state stores. Those guys can buy a buttload more because they're buying it in bulk for the entire state.
Sure.
So they have a better chance at getting something like a Weller Full Proof or something like a Pappy. They'll get they'll get allocated something. You're more likely to get it there. But the way it works is that essentially they will concentrate on a few key markets where they can get stuff. And that's how it works, is that, for instance, that talk about Texas getting Weller and Ohio getting a lot of Weller Full Proof. They send it there because those are two big markets where the Texas retailers will buy a lot of it. The state of Ohio buys a lot of it, and they can sell it, and it's fairly simple. As far as that Dusty Unicorn search, this is one of the whiskeys I found just on a Dusty Unicorn day when I was driving down to Kings Bay, Georgia, to visit my daughter and son-in-law.
It's a good
And
base.
I stopped off in Santee, South Carolina, just to get some gas. I pull over into a liquor store just to say, okay, let me take a look and see what they got. This was sitting on their shelf, and it had been sitting on their shelf for years. It was a 1 liter bottle of Harvey's blended Scotch. They had a price on it of $14.
What?
And I jumped on it because they said, we haven't been able to sell that sucker in years. And I jumped on it because it came from the 1980s when, if you know Scotch whiskey at all, in the mid 1980s, early 1980s, they were closing distilleries right and left in Scotland because they couldn't sell Scotch whiskey. So a lot of that content, a lot of the malt whiskeys back then went to blending. So they blended some really good stuff into this one. And I paid like $14 for it. And I should have bought the second bottle they had. I bought it just because I saw it and I go, you know what? For $14, I'm willing to give it a try. So you never know what you're going to find when you do a Dusty bottle search. But in terms of distribution, the way it works is that companies like, I won't name names, but Todd works for one.
Beam Centauri.
No.
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 Let's see.
Certain,
Pick
like
another one.
the
Sazerac?
distributors, the regional distributors.
Oh, okay.
Like a Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits or Breakthrough Beverage. There are some of the major distributors around the country. They're the middlemen that distribute between states or distribute and control. They're the middlemen between the distilleries and whiskey makers and the retailers and bars and restaurants. They buy the stock from the distilleries and then parcel it out to their customers. They work as the middleman. They decide who really is going to get the allocations. The distilleries don't. They can say, we're going to sell it into these 5 states. But then it's up to the distributors and the wholesalers to decide which retailers are going to get those. And a lot of the time it's based on what they buy. If you look at, for instance, who gets a lot of, say, Pappy Van Winkle allocations, it's going to be retailers that have bought a lot of Buffalo Trace over the years.
Correct.
Things like that. So the system is not perfect. In a lot of states, distributors are expected to make the product available to any retailer that wants it. But if you're a small retailer in a small town like Santee, South Carolina, you go to your local, your statewide distributor, and you may not be able to get that allocation. You might get 1 or 2 bottles of something, and it's going to sell out within the first week. And then you're not going to have it after that. You're not going to get caseloads of a Weller Full Proof. Ever. You're going to be lucky if you get a case. You're going to be lucky if you get 3 bottles.
Sure.
In some cases, you're going to be lucky if you get 1 bottle and the retailer, the store owner, is going to keep it for himself.
And you know what, Mark, that's a good point is, when they get these allocations, especially in 2020, in 2021, it's a crazy year and, you're lucky to get what you get. And, sometimes, yes, the store will keep it to themselves because it's rare and there's not enough to give out. And it's based on prior year's sales. And so all these allocations, yeah, it's a mess. Yeah, that's for sure.
But this past year is a little bit different because we didn't have the so-called on-premise bars and restaurants buying as much whiskey from the distributors because a lot of them were shut down.
Sure.
So it's going to throw things off a little bit this year. You might find a little more stock.
That's all. I was going to ask that too. I was going to ask because a lot wasn't bought last year. Is it a better chance and go and find those Dusty bottles this year?
Yeah.
Maybe on a couple shelves.
Yeah, I would look for them because they got to go somewhere.
Yeah, they got to
They're
go
gonna
somewhere.
to the
That's right.
retail
Mark
market
makes a good
because the
point.
bars and restaurants aren't going to get them.
That's right. So look in your off-premise deals. Look in your liquor stores. Look in, you
Look in
might be
obscure
able to
liquor
find
stores
stuff.
because sometimes the best deals are found in the hole-in-the-wall stores.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
Like this one in Santee, South Carolina. It was just in a little strip mall right next to the gas station where I stopped. I
Yep.
walk in there and I'm looking at this and going, holy crap, these guys have got some whiskeys.
Right.
Yep, absolutely. And Mark, you make a good point. Is I heard from several liquor stores that for a while or years, a Weller or something like that was sitting on the bottom shelf with dust on it. Nobody wanted it. And then all of a sudden the bourbon craze comes and everybody's got to have it. Then all of a sudden the price goes up. So it's one of those deals for
Here's
sure.
the best example of that. For years, today you can't find a Black Bowmore 1964 single malt Scotch for under $5,000 a bottle. But about 10 years ago, there were retail stores that had it at list price at $300 because there were small stores that didn't realize what they had and they just never sold it. And it was just sitting there. And if you walked into the right store at the right time, you could find it. And today, if you walk into the right store at the right time, you can find Pappy at retail.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Usually in places like Utah, believe it or not.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
Or Arizona.
I'll be honest with you. I'm never going to go to Utah, but if any of you guys find it, I need you to send it to me.
Here's why you go to Utah. Here's why. It's because the Utah liquor store, state liquor monopoly in Utah, doesn't mark up above retail, what the recommended retail price is.
Yeah.
That's the
So
I have
best
no
part,
idea
yeah.
what they're sitting on. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
you will get states that, like Pennsylvania, where they've changed the law to allow the Liquor Control Board to go above markup for some whiskeys.
Absolutely.
Not all of them, but
Yep.
in some states, they sell for the recommended retail price. You can get it for the list price.
That's right.
You know,
You just
one
got to
thing-
find it. Just got to
one
find
thing I
it.
think-
Find it.
Given all the stuff that's happened recently, I think this is one of the prime times when Mark had his bottle had a story, right?
Yeah.
I think you should shoot for that when you're doing this. And the other thing that I think this current market kind of should push people towards is you establish relationships with people at these local places and it'll pay back in dividends. And I think that's the other
Lane-
thing that should
Lane,
be
a great
brought
point.
up. Yeah.
Yep.
Loyalty
Become
pays
friendly.
Yeah.
Become friendly with your liquor store,
Yeah.
and they will help you out. They'll let you
Yeah.
know when these things show up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They will
It
help
may
you
take
out.
a couple of years, but yes, loyalty pays off.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you go and you buy the things, but you establish conversations. You talk about the things you like. You talk about, and I think now more than ever, we need more friendly relationships, and we need just to, hey, when you find a common bond with somebody, you establish that, and you move forward.
Amen.
And so every once in a while, I think it's one of those things. There's multiple things that can bring us all together, but look, we all like alcohol. Obviously, all the people who are listening to this. And you go out and you just your local store, you establish a relationship with them. You may not be the guy all the time, but maybe once in a while you get that phone call. We have some sort of we have Basil Hayden at 10 and we're going to sell you Basil Hayden 10 year and we're going to sell you at this. Boom, you go in and you keep establishing those relationships and you just don't know where that'll build
Yeah.
up.
That's
I'll
exactly
be
right.
honest with you. I'm not going to say I didn't buy my liquor store guy a Christmas gift, but I bought my
Yeah.
liquor store guy a Christmas
That's exactly
You're not
right.
You're not buying a
Exactly.
Christmas gift, but you buy all your liquor from one store.
Absolutely.
That's right.
I buy all my liquor from him. I brought him a card with a little small little donation to him, and I just said Merry Christmas. And the dude texts me whenever he gets some cool stuff in. That's how I got the
Bingo.
Boom.
the limited Frank Sinatra. That's how I'm getting all my stuff. He hits me, hey, I got this in. Do you want it? I'll put it to the side for you. And honestly, it is that. The person you don't know, you guys aren't the same, and you have all these things that are not in common, but you find that one thing that says, hey man, we both like whiskey, and then you become friends.
That's right.
And it really kind of pays off because he'll text me and I'm at work. He's like, hey man, I got this in. What do you think? Okay, I'm gonna come get it. He goes, okay, I'm putting it to the side for you.
Yep.
And it's really
Yep.
really
Be
cool
right there.
to have
Yeah.
that kind of relationship.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
It's all about relationships.
That's
I
right.
agree.
Exactly right. Yep. Whether you sell, whether you whatever, it's all about relationships. Well, guys, everybody, thank you for making the time. We've went, a while. You could go for hours on bourbon, of course, but thank you for making the time. All of you, of course, Mark, Sabu, and Todd, thank you for making the extra time. Delaney,
you.
I know you just, your wife wants to get rid of you, so that's easy. Lane,
Fine.
same way, so that's easy. But this was fun. Hopefully you guys learned something from this, in terms of bourbon. And well, once again, with Mark, check out his podcast, everything you need to know, whether it is whiskey, scotch, it doesn't matter. This guy knows his stuff, obviously, if you watched any point in time. So check him out, whiskeycast.com. Correct, Mark?
Yes.
That's right. So check him out. You will learn everything you need to know. He is phenomenal. And thank you again for making the time to everybody here. And we will see you next week. And once again, anybody else with anything before we call it a night?
I just want to take
each other, gang.
Yes. And I just want to take a moment to thank Sabu, Todd, and Mark for coming on. Again, this was an education in whiskey and bourbon and everything. I really appreciate you guys' time, and it was outstanding. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for having
very
me.
much. Absolutely. We could have you here 3 more hours, but we don't want to take all your time away.
Right.
Exactly.
I want to say, you guys, thank you very much. I learned so much from the two experts here. I drank a lot of whiskey here by myself, and I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to be in the gym at 04. You guys can meet me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Todd, Mark, thank you for your knowledge.
Difference works 3 hours in my favor. So
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And Todd and Mark, a tremendous amount of time in the industry. They know a ton. So thank you for that. Make sure and check out Mark's podcast. It is, you won't regret it. But thank you guys for that. Sabu, thank you for your service. And everybody, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And we will see you next week. In fact, Lane Pie and Lane and I will see you probably Sunday. We got something planned for maybe a watch along for the conference championships coming up in the NFL. So check that out. We'll definitely let you know on that. But everybody, enjoy your bourbon. Thank you, everybody. And Lane Pie, send us home, buddy. We're going to call it a night. Thank you, and everybody have a good evening and enjoy your bourbon.
Thank you.
Good night, gentlemen.
Good night, all.